Welcome to day 2 of our challenge. Today we'll be focusing on recoding single variables. Let's dive into it. Now, for us to understand what recode means, we have to first understand what codes are. After all, recode means the changing of codes. In any variable, what we refer to as codes are the unique values for that variable. So for example, in this variable, urban or rural status, the codes are 1, 2, 3, 4. So a recode means anything that changes those codes. If I change this 1 to 9, for example, that's a recode. If I collapsed the 4 codes and instead created 2, that's a recode because I've changed the codes. If I changed 1, for example, to string and called it large metro, that also is a recode. So anything that changes the existing code is a recode. We recode primarily for two reasons. One, to collapse the number of categories so that we have less categories. And we want less categories because we want more sample sizes within the respective categories. That's one reason. And secondly, we recode to provide more intuition or more meaning behind the labels. Obviously, it can be very hard for us to know what one means. So we attach a label to it, which is also a form of recode. Now, having said that, let's see how we can recode on the Chisquares platform. So let's jump into this. Let's log in. If you don't have an account, you can sign up. But for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to log in now. All right, we'll go to data analysis. For the sake of time, I won't create a new project. I will just continue from the one we created yesterday, which is the challenge project. The dataset has already been uploaded already, so the system is just pulling up the data. Now, there are two ways from which you can access Recode on the Chisquares platform. The first option is to come from here, data processing, then you click on Recode, then you select one of these two options. Binary simply means I want to create a binary variable. And so it's the UI or the interface is very intuitive. It simply says drag the categories that should be 0 and drag the categories that should be 1. That's what we mean by a binary recode. But the second option there is the custom. I use the custom all the time, even for variables that are binary. So you can use this for 100% of your use cases. The custom will suffice. So this pathway is the first way to access Recode. You come to data processing, and then you come to Recode, and then you select custom. The second way to access Recode is to select the 3 dots at the end of each variable, and then scroll to Recode. Either of those will give you the same result. Now let's go to our challenge for today, the deliverables for day 2, and pick a couple of them and execute them to see how the recode process works on the Chisquares platform. Let's select, first of all, an easy one, sex. It has values. 1 is supposed to be male, 2 is supposed to be female, and then values 7 or 8 or 9, we're supposed to assign those as missing. And the reason why we assign certain values as missing is because we do not want to risk misclassification bias. So if the values are indeterminate, we simply assign them as missing, unless if specified otherwise by the instructions. So let's do that. So we're going to, 1 will be male, 2 will be female, and 7, 8, or 9 will be missing. So let's go here and select the variable sex. This is the variable right here. We click the 3 dots at the end. We scroll to Recode. Now, there are 2 ways to recode on the Chisquares platform. There is the visual method, which is what we have here. The visual method is for people who do not like to suffer. Everything is visual, as you can see. You can see the colors are bright. You can see the sample sizes displayed right in front of you. So it allows you to see what's happening beneath the code. I love the visual method. That's the only way I use to recode. But for people who like to suffer, There's also the classic method, which I never use. So we're just going to stick with the visual method for simplicity. So the instruction said to recode 7 and 9 to missing. So I will check the boxes beside 7 and 9. Once you check the boxes here, 2 or more boxes, this option appears at the very top. And if we click it, we have the option to either merge selected, which is to combine them, or to mark as missing, which is what we want, because the instruction said set 7 and 9 to missing. So we're going to mark as missing, and that creates a missing category. We're supposed to set 1 to mail, so we're going to select more actions. We're going to edit the label and type mail and confirm. Again, one of the perks of a visual method is that it makes everything visual. That includes picking up names and assigning color to what is commonly associated with those names. So in this case, mail, when you think of mail, you think of blue. So the platform assigns the color blue to that category. For the second category, let's edit the label and type female. And of course, the platform assigns pink to female, and we can assign the name of this variable as gender. Per the instructions, there is this checkbox here that says replace original variable. If you check that box, it would recode and replace, but you really don't want to use that option unless you are really sure of what you're doing. It's always a good practice to keep the original variable so that in the event you made a mistake, you can always go back to that original variable and repurpose it as needed. So we will not be checking this box. We will just create a new variable entirely and proceed. And that's how you create a new variable from Recoding on the Chisquares platform. So let's check our new variable that we just created. You can see here gender. It's categorical with values of male and female. Let's look at the visualization of the variable to see. Again, it's always a good practice to inspect variables you have created to make sure that indeed they have been created as you intended. So that's that. Now let's go to another variable and recode. This time let's recode a continuous variable. Let's go to the instructions and let's select, for example, age. The instruction says to create these categories of age 18 to 24 and so on and so forth. And this time we're told to keep 97, 98 and 99 as unknown. So let's go and do just that. We'll go and select age. We will click the 3 dots at the end and select recode. So for continuous variables, the platform displays them as one solid cylinder. And the idea is that you just click where you want to cut. For example, we wish to cut at 97 or above 97, and we confirm. The platform has split that group, and we're going to call this unknown. So edit the label and call this unknown per the instructions. Next, we are supposed to cut the group at 65 or older. So we're going to click anywhere around 65, specify the input, and confirm. So this is 65 or older. Next, we're supposed to cut at, let me refresh my memory. So 65 or older, 45 to 64. So we're going to cut at the cutoff 45 and confirm. And lastly, we are supposed to 18 to 24. So that means the next cutoff is 25 to 44. So we will come here and we'll split at 25 and we'll confirm. So here we have our categories: 18 to 24, 25 to 44, 45 to 64, 65 to 96, and older than or unknown. If notice that I started creating my categories from top to the bottom. The reason why I did that is because when you specify a cutoff, the platform assigns it to the group on the top. So when I entered 65, for example, as my cutoff, you can see 65 belongs to the group above. So it's easier for me to just start from the top and proceed downwards. But you can also start from the bottom if you wanted, because the platform has the option to resize. So you can always resize any given group. If I wanted to make this group 18 to 25, instead of 18 to 24, all I need to do is change the maximum and put 25. And what the platform then does is to resize the adjacent groups. So this will become 18 to 25, and then this will become 26 to 44, and so on and so forth. So that's how you create a new variable from a continuous variable. And here we want to call the variable age cat, and we proceed. Now let's look at the generated variable to just make sure that indeed we have created it. So let's look at age cat at the very top. These are the variables we have. And by the way, you can always sort the display of variables by all of these parameters. By default, it is sorted by last modified. So the variables that were created last appear at the very top, but you can change the order to whatever you want. So here we have our new variable created. Let's look at the visualization quickly. Again, always create a habit of visualizing variables that you've created to make sure that indeed they have been created well. So these are our new categories, and we can close this. Now there's a use case I want to demonstrate quickly, and that's with the variable education. Just something you should be aware of. Now notice that education is a categorical variable, obviously, but let's notice something special about what happens because it has so many categories. So we'll go and select education to recode. This is it right here, and click on recode. So one thing you notice is that even though it's categorical, it appears as though it's continuous. And the reason this happens is because it has a lot of values, unique values that are numeric. Let's go back here. It has values like 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the way down. That's a lot of values. So the system interprets the variable as numeric. Now, if you wanted to just change it back to categorical, which is its true state, you just come here and click the wheel icon and say treat as categorical. So that's very important. So click this button and the system will now display the individual values as unique bars, and then you can do your recode. In this case, we're supposed to set the values of 97 and 99 as missing. So we check those two and scroll all the way back to the top, and we have this button here. We click as mark as missing, and those are set to missing. And then the other categories, we will then create them the same way we did. Values 0, 1, or 2 is 0 to 12. So 1 or 2. More actions, edit label 0 to 12. By the way, if you don't like the sound effect, you can come to settings and switch it off. You can switch the sound effect off. You can also switch the color off if you want, so it becomes boring for people who like boring things. I like vibrant color, so I'm always putting this on, and done. So that's how we've created that first group, and then the next ones, if it's 3, call it GED. If it's 4, call it high school. If it's 5, that's some college. So 3 is GED, and 4 is high school, and 5 is some college, and 6, let's confirm, 6 or 7 is associate degree, and 8 is bachelor's. All right, so 6 or 7 is associate degree, and 8 is bachelor's. and 9 or 10, that's graduate. So let's edit the label. And that's how you recode on a Chisquares platform for both variables that are categorical or continuous. And this new variable is supposed to be called educ. So we're going to give the name educ and proceed. Okay, so here we have our new variable created. We can always visualize it. Always visualize variables you've created to make sure that indeed they have been created. So these are the categories we have. And that is how you recode on the Chisquares platform. The deliverables for today are meant to help you to practice over and over. So we have quite a bit of variables here, which we'll use in our report. But they are all straightforward because it's just a recode of a single variable. So I look forward to receiving your submissions, and should you have any questions, you can just tag at Chisquares, and we're always very willing to help you. Thank you.